Welcome to Sayfie Review at noon. Thanks for joining us on Front Row Tampa Bay. I'm Justin Sayfie. I'm pleased to be joined now by Florida's CFO, Jeff Atwater. CFO Atwater served in the Florida legislature starting in the year 2000, served in the Florida House and then in the Florida Senate, and finished his term in the Florida Senate as the president of the Florida Senate. We're pleased and honored to be joined by CFO Atwater today. CFO Atwater, thanks for being here.
Good to be with you, Justin. Thanks for having me.
Well, one of the really interesting things about the Republican convention is the opportunity to talk about some of the great things that are happening here in the state of Florida with respect to economic development and our business climate. You've been serving in Tallahassee, in our state capital, since 2000. What are some of the things that have taken place that you've been responsible for, that you've been a part of, to help improve the overall business climate in Florida and in the Tampa Bay area?
Well, Justin, thanks for asking that, because people are going to get to see two very different paths of government. One in Washington that has raised taxes, raised regulation, increased debt. In Florida, the exact opposite. So the legislature, and under the great guidance of Governor Scott, reduced corporate income taxes, just took people off the rolls. That money can go to create a job, buy a piece of equipment. That's been taking place. Reducing property taxes so that they could afford to stay in the location and build the business and keep people employed. Every agency is going through all the rules to reduce rules and regulations so that we're not asking more of a business owner so they can keep the focus on growing the business. Those are the things we've been about. At the same time, we've also reduced the state's debt. So on the next generation, we won't extract that money from their pocket. And then lastly, unlike Washington that talks about reducing the growth rate of spending, we've actually reduced the number of agencies and the spending that goes on in Florida. So Florida's government is actually smaller, less debt, less spending, less taxes, less regulation. Florida businesses, a real chance for success.
Now, there's also, in addition to that, there's also an initiative that you're spearheading right now in the CFO's office with respect to reforming how the state does contracting. Tell us about that, and why will that help Florida businesses?
It will, because remember, every dollar that comes to government is extracted from the wallet or the business model of someone in Florida. We don't get it any other way. The contracting reform of the $70 billion state budget, 60% of it is deployed in the form of a contract: mental health support, managing and running our prison systems, building our roads. Those are contracts. But small business owners of Florida have no idea when those contracts are coming due. Are they sole sourced? Do they just go back to the same vendor that maybe an out-of-state player? We want in-state Florida small business owners to know what's coming due. Read what we have. Compete for that. Make us sharpen our pencil. If we're spending the people's money of Florida, we ought to get the best price and the greatest value. And small businesses in Florida ought to have the first crack at winning those businesses. So by making it transparent, making them sharpen their pencils, we get the best price. And Florida businesses have a chance to do Florida business.
And I imagine that you'll be using the internet or some way to increase this transparency, to make those opportunities available. Is there a website? Is there an email list? How can a business that may be watching this, that may be in Florida or maybe outside of the state of Florida, that's thinking about locating to Florida, how can they get access to that information?
Justin, perfect tee-up. It's called FACTS. Everything has an acronym. Florida's Accountability Contract Tracking System. On our website, www.myfloridacfo.com. They can go to that transparency, that system, and they can pull up by every agency. They can pull up by size of contract. They can pull up by type of contract. So if they're in the transportation business, they can go right to DOT and they can pull up all transportation contracts. If they're providing a food services to the state of Florida, they can go right to that type of service and pull that up and see all the contracts that exist, and get in there and compete and help us drive down cost. And you keep it here in Florida.
Okay, so that's the website again is
www.myfloridacfo.com, and then look for the fax link. And just go to the fax system and pull it up and see every contract.
And that's up and fully operational right now today. So people who are watching this, they can access it right now and see that information.
About 30,000 contracts are now logged into the system, which before, a year ago, nobody knew how many contracts we have. The next step is that we want to image every one of those. So right now they can see the summary, and they can see the number, and they can see its maturity date and what's expected in that contract. Soon we hope to be able to put every image of every contract online, full transparency, so the people of Florida know how we're spending their money.
Wow, that sounds great. What an incredible use of technology to help make it easier to do business with state government, and as you said, to drive down costs as well.
Drive down costs.
Looking forward to the next legislative session,
Sure.
or are there any things that you think that you want to accomplish or that would be helpful for your office or otherwise?
We want to continue with the contract reform opportunity, and we done? Yeah, we want to continue with the contract reform opportunity so we can make that fully transparent to the people of Florida. And we still need to go back in, Justin, to be sure we can create a marketplace of insurance providers coming into Florida and driving down costs and offering insurance products in Florida. That's been way too expensive for the people of Florida.
Great. Okay, well, CFO Atwater, we are so grateful that you joined us today. Thank you for being here, and more importantly, thank you for your public service to our state.
Justin, thank you. Good to be with you today.
Good to be with you. And next, we're pleased to have with us State Representative Will Weatherford. Representative Weatherford is the Speaker Designate of the Florida House of Representatives. He will become Speaker of the Florida House later this year and will serve 2 years in that position. He's a native of Pasco County and has served in the Florida Legislature since 2006. Please join me in welcoming Speaker Designate Will Weatherford. Thanks for being here.
Actually, I've been comfortable.
Great to have you with us. The convention here in Tampa, Republican National Convention, obviously huge economic development success for this region, an opportunity to showcase lots of different things that are happening here in the region. You're a native of this region, you represent this region in the Florida Legislature. What does it mean to you in terms of having the convention here and what it means for local businesses here in Tampa Bay?
Yeah, I think it's a defining moment for our city, for Tampa, for the region. It gives us an opportunity, I think, to really showcase what Tampa has become. But the perception of Florida, and to a large extent, the perception of Tampa is versus what it has become are two different things.
So are you traveling back and forth a lot now, or?
I feel like we've come a long way. There's certainly some room for improvement, but when you look at the changes that we've made from our infrastructure to our education system to the new clusters, particularly in the bioscience area, Tampa is really leading the charge.
Well, now you're going to become Speaker of the Florida House later on this year. What are some of the things that you think that the Florida Legislature will likely be addressing in terms of improving the business climate to make Florida and the Tampa Bay region a better place to do business for the existing businesses and maybe for some other businesses that are looking to leave some of those high-tax states like California and Illinois?
Well, I think you hit on it there at the end. There's kind of two paths that states are going down right now. And maybe unlucky for them and lucky for us, I think Florida is going down the right path. And what I mean by that is the California-Illinois model of, borrow more money, don't balance your budget, increase your tax base, increase your regulatory burden. It's chasing people out of their states. You look at the census numbers, and the states that have the highest tax rates are the states where people are moving away from. The states that have the lowest tax rates and the best regulatory climate, people are actually moving to. And so there's a great book by a lady named Ayn Rand. It's called Atlas Shrugged. It's been around for quite some time, but it's one of my favorites. And the reason for that is she talks about this place called Atlantis. It's where all the job creators and entrepreneurs go to escape the regulation and the taxes. We want to build the Atlantis of America. We want Florida to be the place that is the best place to do business, the best place to raise a family, and the best place to enjoy freedom. And if we do that, the people will come.
I couldn't agree more. That sounds like a great mission. Obviously, working that through the political process is going to have its challenges. But in terms of one issue that I know that you're interested in, and that's the issue of education. How do you assess where Florida is now and what it needs to do to develop that competitive advantage over other states and, for that matter, other countries to help Florida be competitive and be a job-creating state, the Atlantis of the future, as you would say?
Yeah, and probably one of the cornerstones of being that Atlantis is having a knowledge-based economy. We have to have a human capital that rivals anyone else in the world. Right now, we don't have that. We've come a long way, though. Governor Bush was transformational in the K-12 education space. He has changed the way we look at educating our children, starting in pre-kindergarten all the way through high school. I think we need to continue down the road that he started, but we also have to start looking at higher education. And I think that there needs to be some disruptive innovation in the higher education space as well. There are ways to deliver better content, faster, cheaper, and more accessible to people in the state of Florida. And do it in a way that I think is more compatible with what their lifestyle is, and that's online. We've got to take advantage of online learning. We have to take advantage of the fact that people are getting their information in different ways today. Everyone still reads a newspaper. They just may not pick up the actual newspaper and read it in that format. So we've got to adapt, and we've got to make sure that our higher education system is being reformed, not just our K through 12.
Mm-hmm. And you think that that's something that may take place under your tenure as Speaker Designate? Is that something that you'd like to see happen?
I hope so. I mean, I think we should lead on education. It is the arms race of the 21st century. The states and the countries that have the smartest people and the best human capital will be the states and the countries that flourish. We are not competing against Georgia and Alabama. We are competing against other countries around the world. We have got to make sure that our kids have that opportunity. I always tell people that what we believe in is equal opportunities, but not necessarily equal outcomes. And if we can give our students and our kids every opportunity to be successful and give them the best access to education, then it's up to them to go turn that into something on the back end.
Right. Speaker Designate Weatherford, thank you so much for being with us today on Sayfie Review at noon. We wish you luck in your term as Speaker of the Florida House.
Thank you, Justin.
Thanks. Next, we're pleased to be joined by State Representative Richard Corcoran. Representative Corcoran represents the Tampa area in the Florida legislature. He previously served as Chief of Staff to the Florida House Speaker, is someone who has a great deal of experience in Tallahassee, and we're pleased to have him with us today. Representative Corcoran, thank you so much for joining us on Sayfie Review at noon.
Thanks a lot, Justin. It's a pleasure to be here.
What's your sense in terms of the impact that this Republican National Convention is having on businesses in the Tampa Bay region, and what long-term impacts do you think it will have going forward after the gavel comes down on August 30th?
Well, it's having a tremendous impact. In fact, last night I had the opportunity to go around to some of the hotels, and everyone was full capacity. They were bustling. We've had some great articles of businesses, and the business leaders have said, hey, we wish we could have the convention every single year, because what they're achieving in terms of economic impact is tremendous to their livelihoods in the community and their employees that they employ. So I think it's a great opportunity, and there's this guy out on the coast named Isaac trying to ruin our little shindig here, but it's not going to work. It's tremendous energy and a tremendous impact. And I think that moving forward, just like we see with the Super Bowl, Tampa got its first Super Bowl, a decade or so ago, and now we get multiple Super Bowls. I think hopefully this will be something where people look at it and say, for the years ahead, you know what, that convention was so successful down in Tampa, let's have another one.
Right. No, I noticed the same thing. I mean, with the amount of visitors and the amount of press, thousands of members of the press from all over the country, many of them wouldn't necessarily travel to Tampa but for the convention, and it gives the opportunity for our state to kind of highlight some of those things as well. What's your perspective as a member of the Florida legislature, moving forward in terms of things that you'd like to see happening from a legislative perspective to help improve the business climate in Florida?
Well, I think one of the things that I'll dovetail it back to the convention, which is really neat, is when Governor Romney added Paul Ryan onto the ticket, immediately there was just tremendous discussion. Every newspaper analyzing the Ryan plan and this. I mean, you got a guy who has said that the thing that we should lead with, what makes us different is we have a platform, and in that platform we say this is what we believe in, and then we champion policies along that platform that make it more economic prosperity and greater freedoms. And so I'm so excited about, and I think that we're going to do the same thing in the legislature. The speaker before, Speaker Weatherford, he's saying we're going to have a bold agenda, we're going to have a plan. And the thing that we do best is when we lead with ideas, when it's our ideas or the debate in a presidential race, we win because our ideas, I think, are the best for our country and for our family's future. And so that's what's exciting about the legislature. And I think it's very exciting about this convention is there's so much discussion on what are the plans that take us to the next level as a country and continue to allow us to have that future for our children that we've all been able to grow up in.
Right. Well, no, I think that's something that it's great that we have so much focus here in Florida on that, especially with members of the legislature like yourself, Speaker Designate Weatherford, to help emphasize that. Do you think that there's anything that that'll be coming up in terms of tax policy? We heard CFO Atwater talk about the issue of the corporate tax, Governor Scott's agenda to reduce the corporate tax. Obviously, Florida is a low tax state compared to states like California and Illinois. Do you see that? Do you see there being any movement on that coming forward in the legislature, or do you think that it might just stay kind of where things are right now?
No, I think you're definitely going to see that moving forward because, the reality is we've learned from history, whether it's the capital gains tax or whether it's the states. You go to the Northeast, New Hampshire is the growth state. Why? It's because it's the lowest taxed. You go to the Dakotas, the Dakota that taxes a lot in the north is struggling. The one in the south is not, because they don't tax as much. So we've learned that, and we'll move forward, and we'll address tax policy for sure, because it's crucial to Florida. When our growth rate is right around 3%, we have all the resources we can to bring in economic development, to enhance our educational system. And we know how we get there is by lowering our tax rate. When a home ownership is affordable, by lowering property taxes, lowering your homeowner's insurance, more people come here because we have a great, beautiful weather. And so that's, I think, something we're definitely going to do, is we'll look at addressing that taxes and continue to bring that growth rate so that we can have those resources necessary to prosper.
Right. We have very limited time left, but you mentioned before our buddy out there in the Gulf, Isaac. What ultimate impact do you think that's going to have on this whole convention week, whether it's going to detract from it, or is it something that is it something that won't really have that much of an impact? Obviously, we know it impacted the first day of the convention, but what do you see with the rest of the week?
Well, I think that we have a historical party of leading through adversity, and I don't think Isaac's going to have one iota of impact. I think, in fact, it's instilled in all of us when, normally we might say, I might not do this, or I'll do this one because there's so many events that you can go to. Now we're going to all of them just to make a statement that there's no storm that's going to deter us from having a great time and nominating somebody that we think will really, really turn this country back around.
Great. Representative Corcoran, thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks,
and good luck
Justin.
to you in the legislature this
Thank you.
coming year. Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us and watching Sayfie Review at noon as part of the Front Row Tampa Bay show. We'll be back tomorrow at 11:58 a.m. Hope you can join us then. Now, stay tuned after this break for a great panel discussion with Lunch with Kathy.